Hello, and welcome to the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parsi here with my co-host Aiden Sarah. And man, the Olympics are Olympicing so hard. We have everything underway. We're into elimination games. You're tuning into this one just after the U.S. women's team has taken a 2-1 overtime victory over the Canadian women's team in quite the thriller. A thriller that, some people were worried we might not see, but we'll get to that one shortly. Aiden, how are we doing, fella? How are you enjoying this Olympic craze as we've watched both Canada and the U.S. Take it deep on the men's side as well?
Yeah, my voice is kind of a little bit in shambles. I
You don't
got pretty
say.
loud. I got pretty loud when Marner scored. And it wasn't even, I had to go to a doctor's appointment. So I'm watching the game with my buddy, and Suzuki ties it. Him and I are going nuts. But then third period hits, and I gotta get from Maple Ridge to Burnaby for this doctor's appointment. So I'm on the back road. I got Chris Cuthbert connected to the car, and man, if whoever was driving next to me like looked over to their left when they scored, they would have thought I was having a seizure or something. I was screaming, I was hitting the steering wheel, like I was almost honking the horn, like oh my god. And I finally got to see it when I pulled up at the end of the drive, and Marner just takes it to the freaking hole, man. I was so happy. And this is a guy, all of the noise about not being a clutch player, and it's now back-to-back tournaments. He scored a goal that, Canada doesn't win the Four Nations in retrospect because they end up losing in the group. They don't even get out of the group if he doesn't win that game against Sweden. And obviously this was do or die against Czechia. Marner Hero 1, Bennington Hero 2 in both scenarios, I think. But you said it yourself, women's hockey. Do you want to start there?
Let's start it there. And it was a thriller. It was a game with a lot of storylines built right in. You had Captain Clutch Marie-Philippe Poulin back in the lineup. You had Hilary Knight, the all-time legend for the U.S., playing her last game in the Olympics for her country, and everything seemingly on the line. In the last gold medal winners in the women's hockey in the Olympics, that was the U.S. prior to this one in 2022, correct?
No, Canada won in 2022. It's gone.
18 was U.S.
Yeah, correct. They won in a shootout in Pyeongchang.
Right. And so this rivalry, it stretches deep. And you look at the U.S. taking a quite a bit younger team this year, and that was one of the big storylines, whereas Canada took a lot of veterans. And I mean, with the career that these vets have had, it's hard not to take them. And you got to say, and they must have left it all out on the line, right?
This was an awesome game, and I say that with a heavy heart. This you said it yourself. There's not a lot of hockey rivalries, and quite frankly, man, if any, since the Olympics started, where there's two teams that share the stage in such a significant way, and two teams that are head and shoulders above the rest. I do want to talk about Hilary Knight, but we're gonna start just with the game itself. Canada comes in and they're the underdog by a good margin. The United States had won 7 games in a row against them in all competitions, and they smacked them 5-0 in the group. That was without Marie-Philippe Poulin in the net, and Anne-Lene Desbiens in between the pipes for Canada in that game. She got the hook. She got yanked. So she gets the start again in the final, and from the outset, she's excellent. The United States, you know what? For a big chunk of the game, Canada was out shooting the U.S. I would say the U.S. had more grade A scoring chances. Desbiens was phenomenal throughout this game. She was, if they had got over the finish line and won this in 60 minutes, first, second, and third star is the Canadian goalie. Excellent goal from Canada on the counterattack. That Laura Stacey, she plays for the Montreal Victoire. I'm going to try and highlight as many PWHL teams as I can in this segment as well. Laura
Love it.
Stacey for Canada, Montreal Victoire, makes an excellent pass to the middle of the ice, shorthanded. New York Sirens is Kristen O'Neill for Canada. Beautiful move to the backhand, shorthanded goal to make it 1-0. And Canada grinded. And you know what? In retrospect, they're going to look back and they're going to see the missed opportunities, the missed chances they had when they were up 1-0 as the opportunity gone, as the chance to win at the gold medal that just slipped out of their hands. Because you get to the end of the game, I thought it was gutsy. James, you don't see the goaltender getting pulled as early in the women's game. It's just not really something the coaches do, to pull the goaltender with 2.5 minutes left in the third period. And the United States got an offensive zone draw around that time, and it was, in retrospect, absolutely the right call to pull Aaron Frankel to the bench. There's an extra attacker. You've got the puck at the line with Layla Edwards. Edwards, one of the players that is not in the PWHL, she's playing for the University of Wisconsin. So it's an awesome story for Edwards, who shoots the puck through traffic. Like I said, she's at Wisconsin. Well, Hilary Knight was a University of Wisconsin player too. She took the year off to play in the 2010 Olympics. She took the year off to captain the United States at the 2010 Olympics from the University of Wisconsin. And it's Edwards who takes the shot. It's Hilary Knight on the doorstep, tips the puck through her legs, perfect, over Desbien's glove, sends it to overtime, and then in overtime, Taylor Heise of the Minnesota Frost, she's one of the faces of the league. Good pass ahead, and oh my God, Megan Keller, she's a she's a defenseman, and she just absolutely dances the Canadian back checker. Good backhand under Desbiens, and heartbreak, just heartbreak for Canada. And this is why I wanted to talk about Hilary Knight. Okay, James, you and I have been watching the Olympics forever. Obviously, for me, I was born in 2002. First Olympics I remember watching was Vancouver 2010, and it was an 18-year-old Marie-Philippe Poulin in the 2010 gold medal game. Scores twice in the final, wins it. 2014 Sochi, Knight against Poulin again. Captain Poulin scores two, late time goal, wins it in overtime. Finally in Pyeongchang, Knight won her first gold medal, but then back in Beijing, gold medal game, Hilary Knight scores a shorthanded goal in the second period back in 2022. It was a tournament where she sets a new U.S. women's record by playing in the most Olympic games. She's the fourth American woman in U.S. hockey history to be named to 4 Olympic teams. This is a big deal for Hilary Knight in 2022. She won the Bob Allen Women's Player of the Year award at the end of the season, but what Hilary Knight didn't do again was beat Marie-Philippe Poulin in the final. It was Poulin 2, Knight 1 in Beijing. Canada ends up winning the game 3-2. And at the end of the day here, James, after all of that, Hilary Knight, 2 years older than Marie-Philippe Poulin, it's her last ever Olympic game. And you know what? She finally gets one up on Poulin. Finally. At the end of the day, Knight finally outscores Poulin in a gold medal game, and obviously, Knight didn't get the game winner, but that was the difference, was Hilary Knight came up in the clutch, and after, decades of her watching Poulin, the captain of the Canadians, do it over and over and over again, she finally gets her moment. So I think Hilary Knight deserves this. I'm really, really happy for her because she's been one of the faces of American women hockey for a long time. And it's kind of been, to quote Matthew Tkachuk and Leon Draisaitl, there's been an element of always the bridesmaid and not the bride for this U.S. Olympic team at times. Obviously, they did win in Pyeongchang, but as dominant as they are, this is not the first time that they've come in on a big winning streak against Canada into a gold medal game and then struggled. This could have just been yet another one that got away from them, but Knight's 5th and final Olympic Games, her last ever game in the Olympics. What a way to go out, ties the game, and watches Keller win it in overtime.
Aiden, that's something I've had a huge appreciation for over this Olympics, not just in hockey. When someone they've been a participant and a major contributor in 4 or 5 Olympic games. You look at Lindsey Vonn in skiing, you look at someone like Mark McMorris in snowboarding, and the Olympics prior, it was Shaun White. It's crazy seeing all of these people contribute so much to their sport over a 20-year margin. It's nuts, absolutely nuts. And that's something we really need to appreciate and take the time to watch. You don't get the opportunity for that. It's like when we see these guys play 1,600 NHL games. This doesn't happen. This is a rarity. This is something to be praised. And regardless of the result, I was really happy to see it happen.
Megan Keller, overtime winner, 3 goals and 9 points. She led the tournament. Erin Frankel. James, you haven't brought this up yet. We haven't brought this up yet. So Erin Frankel is the best goalie in this tournament. All right? She plays 303 minutes. I know I paid a lot more attention to this women's tournament than you did. In 303 minutes, she lets in 1 goal today to O'Neill. How many other goals did she let in the tournament? How many do you think?
4.
1.
What?
She lets in 2 goals in 303 minutes. Frankel ends this tournament with a .25 goals against and a .979 save percentage with 3 shutouts. Keep in mind, that's 98 saves on 100 shots in the tournament. So the United States deserves so much credit. Like in the semifinal against Sweden, that was one of her harder games. She only had to face 23 shots. The shutout she got in the quarterfinal, she made 6 saves, right? So it's obviously Obviously, it's maybe not as impressive as some of the other goaltenders. Like the Swiss goalie lets in 8 goals in 247 minutes. Switzerland was under siege for so much of this tournament.
Mhm.
And you know what? Before we move away from the women's tournament, I'm glad I mentioned Switzerland. I might have forgot to talk about it. For a long time, it's been one of the big five in the women's game, the similar five that dominated the men's game for so long, where it was Russia, Finland, Sweden, Canada, and the United States. Switzerland bests their quarterfinal opponent, Finland. They make it so close against Canada in that semi, and then they end up winning in overtime against the Swedes. So huge amount of credit goes to Switzerland as well for. We're going to talk about them in the men's tournament as well, but in this women's tournament, they made it. They made it as interesting as they could have for an underdog team.
Love it. Anything you feel you had to miss out on? Anything you feel you didn't get to see, didn't happen during this women's hockey?
Well, man, the ending hurts. Like I know I'm
Yeah,
giving the
of
United
course, of
States.
course, of course.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
looking for a
giving.
storyline.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the storyline would have been the last hurrah of a Canadian team with tons of experience, right? Like this group of veterans isn't coming back again in this similar fashion. So it would have been, would have been the farewell, would have been the end of the line for so many of them. And unfortunately, they have to settle for silver. I think Poulin is back, James. I at 38, as good as she is, as smart as she is, I think she'll be able to do it.
So you think she's going to come back for a sixth Olympics?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. When your first one's 18, all of a sudden, six doesn't seem like a crazy stretch.
This sounds exactly like all of the people telling me that Crosby is going to play another Olympics after this one.
No, stop. I'm pretty sure Poulin would be the age Crosby is now in the next Olympics, though. Yeah, she's 34. So,
He's 34?
yeah, yeah.
Wow. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she'll be back.
Yeah.
100%. Aiden, should we take it to men's hockey? Oh, wait. Hold on. Who got the MVP?
I haven't seen it yet.
No turning MVP. All right,
Yeah,
we'll keep an eye out on that one. The tournament
yeah.
just ended right before we hit record, so we'll give you that one before the end of the episode, hopefully. But Aiden, let's take things to the men's. We had a very exciting quarterfinals. I want to save the Canada game because I know we have the most to say about that one. Let's take things elsewhere. One of the really awesome games and definitely underappreciated was Switzerland Finland. That's Aiden. You had a really soft spot for the Swiss, and you weren't the only one. That was an incredible Swiss roster, probably one of the best we've ever seen put together. The depth of pros across it, mixed with European talent that we hadn't really seen on a major stage. It was incredible to see. Tell me a little bit about this game.
I think this is a great example of how superstars just are necessary and how sometimes it's a moment from a superstar that changes everything. Switzerland really outplayed Finland in the first period. I thought they outplayed Finland in the second period as far as just how impressed I was with them. It felt like even as much as Finland attacked in that second period, the Swiss defense was just kind of a wall they continued to run into. But when I'm talking about superstars, I'm talking about with like what 6 minutes and 6 seconds I think on the clock is when Sebastian Aho breaks in. He's 1-on-3. Aho walks in, and all the credit in the world. Leonardo Giannoni was great in this tournament for Switzerland. Again, we talked about it last episode. This was the World Championship MVP last year. He earned this spot. But Giannoni's not used to an NHL player like Sebastian Aho who comes in. It's such a quick change of the angle. If you watch what Aho does, he steps to the middle, he changes the angle on Giannoni, and then it's just a wicked wrist shot to beat him on the blocker. Switzerland lost Kevin Fiala. They have a couple, Roman Josi, Timo Meyer, Nico Hischier, a couple superstars to that level of a Sebastian Aho or close to the level of a Sebastian Aho. But it's one of Finland's superstars that comes up huge. Makes it 2-1. Once the goalie gets pulled, sometimes good to be lucky, lucky to be good, and Miro Heiskanen's going to get credit for this one. It looked like Artturi Lehkonen off the hop in front of the net. Lehkonen's the one battling for it. Heiskanen had the shot. I thought he should have taken the shot anyways, but he makes the pass toward Lehkonen, hits the Swiss stick, goes into the back of the net. It's 2-2. And then in overtime, and it's a Finland team, like no Alexander Barkov. And no Alexander Barkov was a story for the Finns. It's been a story for the Florida Panthers. And obviously one of the players for the Florida Panthers, if not the guy that was touted to come in for Barkov, was Anton Lundell. Has he done it the way that the team has hoped? Maybe not up to the same level, but he's called upon for Finland. He's out there in 3-on-3 overtime, makes a sweet pass, heads up play to hit Artturi Lehkonen. Lehkonen's in behind, and how many times have we seen this out of Artturi Lehkonen? James won the Stanley Cup game-winning goal for the Colorado Avalanche in 2022. He sent the Montreal Canadiens to the Stanley Cup final in overtime in 2021 with a goal against Robin Lehner and Vegas, and it's him in overtime. He didn't get the tying goal. It was taken away from him, credited to Heiskanen because it hit the defenseman, but Lehkonen's the man in overtime, as he has built a habit of being in those big moments.
Well, and he's just a guy who's hungry for the puck, but not just hungry for the puck. He's hungry for the net. He wants to be in there. Like, there was that trend for a little while of just getting in there. You just have to get in that net. And, sometimes it's gotten a lot of other players into trouble with goaltenders, but Lecky just has a habit of being able to get in and around that net without causing too much trouble or goaltender interference. Trouble for the other team and not for himself. And if you want to relive any of that, the NHL's Instagram account did a very good job of posting a compilation of all of those highlight reel clutch goals over the years. And it's something that seems to just continue on and on for him. In this Swiss team, I just want to chat about it with just one little bit. Is this something we're going to see from them a lot moving forward? Roman Josi getting a little bit long in the tooth. They're a savvy veteran goaltender who we didn't know much about before the tournament, but know a lot about now. We're not going to see him in the next tournament, I wouldn't think. What do we have to look forward to in the future for the Swiss squad?
A lot of the same, right? A lot of the how can Timo Meier take over? It's been Roman Josi's team for so long. You're right that Josi's kind of at the end of the line, so it needs to be the Nico Hischier team now. Needs to be the Timo Meier team now. Switzerland has Jonas Siegenthaler on the back end. He's going to need to become that anchor when Josi moves on. I think, unfortunately for Switzerland, when you look at a guy like Roman Josi moving on, it's hard to it's hard to look next up. It's hard to say next man up. Who's the next Josi for Switzerland? Because there isn't one, right? It's hard to say there's going to be another one at all, right? Like Zdeno Chara for Slovakia is probably the best defenseman Slovakia has ever had. And if we're waiting for Slovakia to get another Zdeno Chara, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. So it's hard to sit here and say, well, Switzerland have X, Y, and Z on the horizon to replace a Roman Josi. But the Swiss have another team. They'll have another team with Akira Schmid in net. Hopefully he can produce for Switzerland the same way that he's produced in the playoffs for New Jersey at times, and the way that Giannoni managed to produce for them in the international jersey as well. So the Swiss were my dark horse. They really, really fought to the end against the Finns in the quarterfinal, but it ends up being Canada-Finland in the semi rather than Canada-Switzerland.
Also, watch for Liam Bichel to be a part of the next Swiss squad moving forward. I'm not sure exactly why he wasn't on the team. I don't know if he's injured or something like that. I haven't really looked into that at all. I just know that was a notable Swiss name that was missing from the squad for sure. Yes, excited to watch them moving forward. A lot of intriguing players for sure. Aiden, where do you want to take things next? I think it's time we talk Sweden USA, because that was it's the kind of thing that happens in every tournament like this. When you got this many teams, you're going to end up in a situation where there are a couple that you don't want to see encounter each other until the semis. You don't want to see them encounter each other until the finals. Well, this happens in the NHL with the divisional playoff setup, and it's something that sucks, where you see Dallas and Colorado play in the first round. Well, in the first elimination round of this tournament, you get Sweden and USA, who are likely two of the three best teams in the tournament. Now we have to see one go home. I have to say it was the expected one, but not without a fight. Aiden, take us through the victory of the United States over the Swedish hockey team.
We talked before the tournament We've talked for a while about this American team, and I've always pointed to one guy that to me is the leader of this U.S. team. And a lot of people like to point at Austin Matthews. He's the one with the C on his jersey. A lot of people like to point to the Kachuk brothers because of the way they play the game. You know, they get the fans riled up, and the fans look at that. They say, oh, they're getting the team riled up. They're getting the game riled up. In a way, they are. But to me, it's the level-headedness, it's the experience, it's the leadership of a guy like Dylan Larkin that I've always loved for this U.S. team. He's somebody that I look at and I say, this is one of the guys on this roster. This is one of the guys who I have complete faith will go out on the ice in literally any role that you put him in any shift that you need to look. You need somebody to anything, to do anything, whether it be a defensive shift, defensive zone draw, you know, winning a faceoff on the left side of the offensive zone. Him and Vinny Trocheck at times were taking draws and then sprinting off the ice because their job was just to win a faceoff. If you're asking some of the other American guys to play any role to fit into a box that needs to help the team more than it helps themselves, I don't know who's able to do that. I don't know how many guys are able to do that. Dylan Larkin forever for this U.S. team has been able to do that. He's amazing every single time he puts on that jersey. I said it at the Four Nations last year. He was their best player. He has not been their best player in this tournament so far, but he's the one that comes up clutch in the second period to give them the lead. Assisted by both Hughes brothers. Quinn's the other one that I want to point to as a leader. Before we move on to Sweden, I want to say I did not like in any way, shape, or form the Four Nations face-off that Jack Hughes played. I was not in the minority of that opinion either.
It was irrelevant.
Yeah. Moving into this tournament, I had a funny feeling that, you know, you bring in a guy like Tage Thompson, and Thompson was going to take some of the minutes. Kyle Connor, I thought, had to be better, right? And I thought Kyle Connor was going to take some minutes. Jack Hughes has been better than both of those guys. Jack Hughes has been one of the best American forwards. So Hughes gets a tremendous amount of credit in my books for bouncing back after such a brutal tournament and, you know, such a weird season with the injuries and the way New Jersey have just been in turmoil. But he pops in, he gets the primary assist on the Larkin goal, and then it's his brother in overtime, Quinn, who just... James Gabe Landeskog just backed off too much. that was the story of it. Landeskog, you know, Quinn Hughes and his mobility and his ability is intimidating. And you could see Landeskog facing down Hughes in the one-on-one, just backs off, and Hughes, perfect shot. Glove side on his former teammate, and the United States are into the semifinal. It was quite the game. Mika Zibanejad tying the game late was the other the other incident that caused my voice to cripple the way that it has, because the outward elation when Zibanejad scored was loud on my end too.
And we've talked about it. When that guy's on, he's on. He has a knack for the net. It's a disgusting talent of his to appear seemingly out of thin air and score a million goals. And in this case, not a million goals, but a fairly clutch goal. I will admit, I thought this game was going to be a 1-0 shutout.
I wish. It would have hurt my heart less.
Really? Really?
Yeah. Well,
Walk me through the Quinn Hughes overtime game winner, because this is a moment that the fans of this U.S. team have been really excited for, as he wasn't able to participate in the Four Nations tournament. He is one of the best players the U.S. has at their disposal, if not the best. And he completely unavailable to them before. Yeah, this is a complete game changer.
Yeah, I thought in the Four Nations, Zach Werenski was excellent, but he was also so the focus that it felt almost like the U.S. defense was a little bit subdued. They bring in a Jake Sanderson, and Sanderson, to me, had the next best offensive tournament. Jacob Slavin was phenomenal in the Four Nations for the United States, but in terms of puck movement and offense from their back end, it was Sanderson as the next best after Werenski, and I thought part of that was because Sanderson kind of got the benefit of being the less focused on. Well, you've got all three on this United States team, so when you're able to roll out Werenski and Sanderson and then Quinn Hughes ends up on the ice pressing a really, really tired Swedish unit. And unfortunately, when Boldy gets the puck to him in the middle of the ice, we saw Cale Makar score a power play goal. I think it was against France, where you watched him just kind of stutter step in, and then it ends up being basically he's moved from the point to below the top of the circles before he actually lets the wrist shot go. And, you know, the Swedes with tired legs were respecting the Americans so much. You could see Landeskog was weary that when Quinn Hughes had that puck on his forehand, Landeskog was incredibly weary of a Hughes shimmy to one direction or the other. He was trying to make himself as much of an obstacle as he could to Hughes getting around
These damn
him.
kids and their pump fakes.
Yeah, exactly. And Quinn gets the puck through. If the United States are going to win this tournament, it's a moment that somewhat will define this tournament, I think, for the United States, because it could have been over right there. And a guy like Quinn Hughes to come up in the clutch. Not a lot of guys on this United States team really have been big game players, and Hughes just made himself one.
The play of Jack Eichel is no surprise to anyone. He's looked phenomenal even when not piling up points. Is he the top line center that can compete with, I guess, what Finland doesn't have? Or no, they're playing against the Slovaks. So compete against Slovakia and then take the ice against Canada.
Yeah, it's an even more, even the United States will be even more favored against Slovakia than they were against Sweden, but the Slovaks are sneaky. They've been so good throughout this tournament, and they've been managing to score goals too. This hasn't been a Slovakia team who are backing off and relying on the play of goaltender Samuel Lavai, who's just popped in from the Iowa Wild and
He's a
been an
beauty.
absolute, yeah.
That guy's sick.
Yeah, he's been an absolute stud for Slovakia. But you know what? The way I see the Slovakian team playing, I don't think they're backing off the United States at all. They're going to go at the Americans in the semifinal on Friday. And so when they do, the U.S. has to be ready. And I think I think the defense will be there, but the forwards have to get used to not dominating the game. They're going to need to take the chances when they get it, because Slovakia are going to make it an absolute headache on them to get anything happening. So for me, the key for the United States, you're talking about Jack Eichel as that top line center. I agree with you, but the focus for that group, the focus for Eichel, the focus for Matthews, the focus for Larkin, for Hughes, for Connor, for all of them, for Thompson, is score early and take that lead. You don't want to be in a situation with Slovakia like you were against Sweden, where it's a 1-goal game moving into the final stages, because we're going to talk about Canada. Canada and the Czechs in knockout games. It's the story of Canada and Czechia's rivalry in international hockey over the last 5 years has been games being close to the end and then being decided by one moment, one bounce, one puck going through a small hole, one puck taking a deflection, falling loose at the side of the net. So the United States, to me, it's honestly it's how the first two periods go against Slovakia. If they manage to open up a multi-goal lead and look the better side, it might look like an easy win by the end of the game. But if the more the Slovaks stick around, the more the Slovaks push them, the more the United States are going to sweat. And this is not a write-off game by any means. This is a capable Slovakia team who've been taking it to their opponents.
Players to watch in Slovakia that you might not be super familiar with. The ones you are familiar with, Juraj Slafkovsky and Simon Nemec. Those are already damn near household names, and we knew they would be key contributors on this roster. Now, Libor Hudacek. What did you know about him before this tournament? Because I knew nothing. I've been blown away. Dalibor Dvorsky. I knew quite a bit about that prospect, but I didn't know he'd be this ready to compete at this level at best on best. And he looks like he's not out of place in any way, shape, or form. And this is a guy who hasn't even played more than a couple handfuls of NHL games. And he's out there dancing around guys who have 700 games under their belt, looking fantastic while doing it.
Dude, he's played 2. Dalibor Dvorsky's played 2 games for St. Louis this year. Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic. And it's a guy that, we've seen play because you get a team like Slovakia, right? And when they have a prospect as good as Dvorsky's been, when he's a little kid, they bring him up. So we've watched this guy play in the World Juniors in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. We've seen a lot of him in a Slovakia jersey. And he is only 2 games in the NHL prior to this season, but he is always going, and it's his motor that impresses me the most. I can totally see the allure of taking a centerman who is 6'1", 210 pounds, and just never stops skating, right? You've got size, you've got power. 47 games with the St. Louis Blues this season, so this is his rookie year. That was, sorry, what I was trying to say before that. Prior to this season, he played 2. For Slovakia, it's their first line center, right? It's their first line center, and at 20 years old, they're going to be looking at him. They're going to be saying, we want you to be our first line center for a long time to come. And for a Slovak team who last time they went this deep into the Olympics, we watched Zdeno Chara, Marian Gaborik, Pavel Demitra, Marian Hossa take them there. It's this Dvorsky as a kid, it's the young Slavkovsky, it's the young Nemec that are taking the Slovak team into the semis and who knows where else.
Loved watching them play, man. Loved it. Next up, let's talk this Canada Czechia game because I think we had a probably a mass aneurysm, stroke, whatever you want to call it, session because I think everyone I knew was out of breath. Everyone I knew was on the edge of their seat. And everyone I knew made a story on their Instagram about just their heart rate not settling down for the rest of the day. It was quite the nail biter, man. Quite the nail biter. And I knew something like this was going to happen because my uncle talked about the fact that, he goes, because he's who I watched the game with. He goes, oh, it's only Czechia, man. I wouldn't worry too much about them. And I was like, no, dude, it's not only Czechia. And he goes, well, we beat them 5-0 in the round robin. And I went, yeah, you never beat a team the same way twice in a tournament like this. Never. And we really didn't see their best in that game. Not at all. Not even slightly. There was a lot of fight from Czechia in the start of that 5-0 game, and you saw a lot of flashes of what they could be, and you saw the talent of Lucas Dostal. But it was a track meet for Canada's talent up front. But this is more of the game Czechia is happy to play. It's that war of attrition. It's that let's tire you out and slowly strike when we can. But Aiden, take us from the top. What did you see?
I don't want to be, just a parrot and say the same thing that everybody's been saying, which is, oh my God, Macklin Celebrini is a teenage 19-year-old who's doing this cool stuff at 19, and he's only 19 doing this at 19. But with that being said...
Nobody said nice things about me like this when I was 19.
Yes. With that being said, man... He's one of the only players on this team in this tournament that looks like he's keeping up with Connor McDavid at all. And so it's been a tremendous success to staple him to that McDavid line. They score 3 minutes into the game, but then it gets hard. Then it gets really hard, and Canada's grade A scoring chances at 5-on-5 really became hard to come by after Sidney Crosby left. And I don't think that the Sidney Crosby absence, James, left like a huge hole in their team quality-wise. They have the pieces to fill in those blanks, but it just seemed like it completely threw the chemistry of the group off, and no lines beyond McKinnon, Celebrini, and McDavid could really get anything going once Crosby had gone down. McKinnon scores on the power play to tie the game after Pasternak scores on the power play as well. And it's 2-2 going into the last 10 minutes of the third, and you watch this, James. Now's where it gets interesting. We get Thomas Harley moving up. Thomas Harley has his shot blocked, and Czechia breaks the other way. And at one point, almost half of the Czech roster was on the ice, moving back the other way. There was a point where it was 8, and I had somebody ask me about that. How did they score a goal with 8 skaters on the ice? And I had to say,
it was
well,
7
no.
when they scored it, I think, right?
Well, I said, well, 2 defensemen were coming off, 2 defensemen were coming on. So they were changing 2 of their 6. They still had 6 out there. They just swapped 2 more on to remain at 6 players. I didn't even really notice until I noticed it when they showed the replay of the celebration, not when they were breaking out of the offensive zone. Because I was like, oh, did they have a guy come off the bench to celebrate with them? Because there was a group of 6 players up against the glass, and I didn't even really think anything of it. And because at that time, I'm crapping my pants. I'm so scared that it's like McKinnon said. At the end of the day, it counted. It went in the back of the net. The job, the job, whether the goal was legal or not, the job's the same from there on out. And Canada does it. I want to talk about this goal.
Wait. Did the players know that it was too many men?
McKinnon said he did, and I think what McKinnon said was, yeah. When he was asked, did you see that there was too many players on the ice? McKinnon said, yeah, the refs didn't. It's okay. Would that be the sentiment had they lost? Probably not. Probably not.
I can imagine the McKinnon interview if they had lost.
Listen,
There
I
would have
say it
been
all the
about
time.
14 words said tops, and 9 of them would have been the same word.
There's a logical fallacy here. I understand it, but I'm constantly saying that a mistake is only as bad as the consequences it spurns, and at the end of the day, we've got Chris Rooney on the ice. That's an experienced NHL referee who makes a rookie mistake there. Hopefully, it is the last time in this tournament we see something like that. But I do want to talk about this Canadian tying goal. At so many different points during this play, I thought Nick Suzuki was done. He looks out of gas when he gets this puck in his own zone. You see him cross red. I'm expecting the long flip in deep, and then he goes off the ice in a change. Nope. he chips it ahead of him. He keeps going. And the rest of the play, the rest of the action is happening completely separate from Suzuki trying to work his way in down the right-hand side. I don't even know if Canada gets that full change in if Suzuki doesn't do that, because the puck gets turned over and the Czechs are able to go back the other way. Suzuki dumps it and he stays on the puck. He gets it back and he cycles it back to the line. And for a guy like Nick Suzuki, who I think I didn't like him at on the wing so far in this tournament. I think he hasn't been nearly as effective as he is when he plays center. But for somebody who I've seen be criticized a lot in this tournament, he makes a heroic play to recover that puck, get it back to the line, and it's a deflection that perfect. That slow motion replay of that deflection, put it into a museum. Inject it into my veins, James. That was beautiful. Devon Taves' shot's going 2 feet wide, and Suzuki reaches out, pulls it back to the middle, directs it down in between Dostal's legs. The game's tied. Only took 82 seconds of overtime. When you got that much skill on the ice in 3-on-3, it's hard to see how it lasts much longer than that. Macklin Celebrini with a Sidney Crosby. It was Crosby who dropped the puck all the way back for Mitch Marner in the Four Nations against Sweden to go for his dash into the offensive zone and scored. This time it's Celebrini who drops it back, and it's Marner who finds his way through the middle of the ice and scores on the backhand against Stahl. Mitch Marner, man, so much criticism of Mitch Marner, more than anybody. The Toronto Maple Leafs, James,
Mitchy
the
Gritty.
playoffs. Toronto made the playoffs in his rookie year, and then they made the playoffs every single season with him on the team. And the first year that he's not on the team, they are outside of a playoff spot.
They lost a play-in against Columbus
They
the one
did.
year.
Yeah, they did. That's true.
But it still counts as playoffs games for playoff scoring.
Yeah, so he's played in the playoffs every year. And Toronto now are missing the playoffs without him. And there have been plenty of very valid criticisms levied towards Marner since his arrival in Toronto and since he started playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But James, I remember back, I think it was 2019 in the playoffs. It was at the end of game 3 or 4 against Boston because they were in Toronto. And Mitch Marner blocks at least 2 shots. It might have been 2 or 3 shots in a row at the end of this game, just absolutely laying it out there. I want to say it was game 3 because I think it led to Toronto taking the series lead that year at 2-1. And from that point on, James, I have just thought, you know what? If this guy doesn't put the puck in the back of the net, I've seen nobody else on this Toronto Maple Leafs team throw their body on the line the way Marner just did. I've seen nobody else on this Toronto Maple Leafs team show that they care so much about winning as I just saw Marner do. So from that point on, I'm watching Mitch Marner, and maybe I'm treating him with kid gloves to an extent, right? I can understand that maybe I'm a bit soft on him, but it's a guy who, kind of like Larkin, I look at and I say, go and do anything you can, and I have complete faith you're going to do anything you can to the best of your ability. He 2 assists in the Four Nations gold medal game against the Americans, scores against Sweden in overtime, and is the hero in the quarterfinals against the Czechs. So something about this guy in the Canadian jersey, he gets it going. And James, I said it. We've seen Marner in every single NHL playoffs. We're not, again, I'm not going to say we're not going to see the Leafs. Toronto would have to pass 4 teams, not including Florida, who are right on their heels, to make the playoffs right now. If they don't, Marner's still going to. So we're going to see, I think maybe for real, we're going to see what clutch gene Mitch Marner has in him. It took maybe, took 10 years after he got drafted to see this on full display, but it took McKinnon a long time too to finally break through. And look at the guy now. Nobody would say Nathan McKinnon's not the man for the big occasion.
One thing I just want to touch on from that game, and this stems from a lot of conversations I had with people who, maybe aren't as big of hockey fanatics as us. You get a little bit more of a casual fan when something like this happens, when you get a big, momentous event such as the Olympics. But there are a lot of superstars on Canada's roster. And I think with all of the talk of Celebrini, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, it's easy to forget about that. It's easy for you to be like, oh, the third line's out, the fourth line's out, get McDavid out there. Because that's a lot of the conversations I had with people who are a little bit less in tune with things. And I don't think any of our listeners are those folks. There's nothing wrong with being those folks. I mean, often I have been told by some of my friends, get a life. There's more life than hockey. And I do get that. I 100% get that. But the game winning goal was a perfect example of my sentiment on that one. Yes, the big group with McKinnon scoring that tying goal, that extremely exciting, amazing, in fact. But it's the kind of thing where the depth on this roster, the complementary pieces, those are the ones that are going to win you these games as well. And those aren't the stars on this team, but they are the stars. They are the captains. They are the most valuable players on their respective teams around the NHL. And the NHL is the best hockey league on the planet, bar none. It's not even relatively close. It's not a sniffing distance thing. It's not comparable to other leagues in that sport. So
The next best might be the A, dude.
yeah,
Yeah, I
it
think right
might
now
be.
it used to be the K. It used to be the KHL. I think the talent in Europe has diluted since the Russians invaded Ukraine because a lot
And
of
since the
players.
NHL expanded by 2 teams.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of players that would go overseas to Russia have started to either, yes, you're right, find different NHL spots and stay in the AHL because those NHL spots are a little bit easier to come by now, or gone to different leagues in Europe. The SHL has a lot of good players in it, and you're seeing a lot more players go to their home countries rather than to Russia, right? Like you see guys that are Czech when they retire. Michael Kempny's playing in Czechia, right? We just saw him yesterday, so it's a good example. So yeah, I would say the AHL at this point is the next best league. You're exactly right. So the NHL superstars, yeah, you got to bang on. They're at the top, the top of this sport beyond any comparison.
Well, Horvat's on Canada's fourth line. He's been one of the best players in the NHL this season. This is it's the kind of thing where I don't really think, okay, sure, maybe it might matter what line you have out on the ice, whether or not you have your top players on the ice, but Canada's worst players are ready to compete and make a difference against any team's best players. They'd be ready to compete and make a difference against Canada's best players. They do every night in the NHL. So
If Canada were able to submit a B team, I think they could easily medal. I
they
don't know
got a
if like
shot.
yeah, I'm not gonna say a guarantee because their A team just barely beat the Czechs, right? But this is a very deep group of Canadians. Canada didn't leave Connor Bedard at home because they're stupid, right? That just goes to show how loaded this roster is, even if the talent isn't as readily apparent as it is when the puck's on Connor Bedard's stick.
One final quarterfinal team that we haven't spoken on whatsoever, Germany. They go home early, but a quarterfinal loss, there's nothing wrong with that. This team did have some excitement because of its roster, featuring Leon Draisaitl, Tim Stützle, JJ Peterka, Moritz Seider, complemented by Lucas Reichel, Mirko Mueller, a handful of other fine athletes. But this wasn't the year. This isn't the year they break through. I think next Olympics we could see an even more loaded Germany team.
If Germany manages to beat Latvia in that group, Germany moves up to having 6 points, and they would have passed Switzerland. They would have been the fifth ranked team. It just means they would have played Italy in the group, and it means they would have turned around and they would have played the Finns in a semifinal. Would they have beat Finland? Completely a debatable topic. But Slovakia were ranked higher than Finland. Slovakia had beat Finland in the group. On paper, Slovakia to me were the team you didn't want to play because they had been red hot. They'd been rolling. They'd only lost 5-3 to the Swedes, and that was on the back of Lucas Raymond and Elias Pettersson scoring, I think, like 3 minutes apart in the third period was the reason that became Sweden's game against the Slovaks in the group. Not to be for Germany. You said it yourself. It's not going to be the end for the Germans. They will be back. Leon Draisaitl, Tim Stützle, JJ Peterka. Are they going to be better in 4 years? Some of them will. Mo Seider probably will. I could see Tim Stützle being a much more dominant player in 4 years. Even if Draisaitl isn't, Draisaitl's still going to be Draisaitl. We're not going to see a sudden fall off from him.
100%, man. Well, I'm gonna have a few more things to talk about as we go into the semifinal, as we get a little bit further. But we'll be talking about those next episode. The semifinal set for 7:40 a.m. Pacific time, Canada versus Finland, and 12:10 p.m. Pacific, United States against Slovakia. These will be exciting. I can't wait. I don't think we need to preview those as we've already talked at length about these squads. Aiden, anything else you want to touch on before we just talk a couple more things?
McDavid's due. I think McDavid's due. He scored the first goal of the game against Switzerland on the power play. He's only got one goal at 5-on-5. It was that beautiful breakaway finish against France. In 2010, Sidney Crosby and Jerome Iginla were criticized because Crosby had one goal against the United States in the group, but except for that, their scoring in the going into the gold medal game, even they beat Russia, they beat Slovakia in the semis. Crosby and Iginla's scoring in that tournament came against Norway in the group in an 8-0 win and against Germany in the qualification playoff in an 8-2 win. Crosby had one goal against the US in the group stage loss, but that was it for Crosby or Iginla really making an impact. Neither of them scored against Russia. Iginla's 5 goals all came in those 2 games against Norway and Germany, but guess what happened at the end? It was those 2 clicking when it mattered most. So Connor McDavid, he's got 11 points. I'm not comparing his tournament to those 2 at all. He's been in the fray, he's been their best player, but the goals aren't going in quite yet. I think when we get to Sunday, you're going to see him come to life and put the puck in the back of the net in a big way, just like he did in the final in the Four Nations.
Exciting. Something to look forward to. We're not going to dive into a fantasy gamblers roundup much, but Aiden has gotten a little bit cheeky, as many people will do once they see some guys injured long term after the Olympics. Aiden, what have you been doing? What rat-like activity have you been up to in our fantasy league?
Oh, just absolute low balls for those injured players. And it's funny. It's funny, dude, because every time the conversation comes up about the Olympics, it is always about the NHL teams not wanting to see their guys get hurt. And that's why every time it happens, it just smokes me.
Who's it going to be?
Yeah, because it's going to be Pittsburgh and it's going to be LA with Fiala and Crosby that come back and say, this is why we didn't want them to go. And you know what? Unfortunately, they're going to be right because those guys took the knock in the games that those teams will feel didn't matter as much as their games did.
Do we have an update on Crosby yet?
No, not yet. Morrissey's going to come back. We're going to see
Okay.
Morrissey back before the end of the tournament. We haven't got a Crosby update. My hope is if he doesn't play on Friday, that doesn't rule him out for Sunday, right? It was a lower body tweak, but we haven't seen more.
It's a heartbreaker, man. He was playing some of the best hockey I'd ever seen him play at the international level. It was incredible. But he's not ruled out, so we'll see. Time will tell. In shows and movies, as we always talk about near the end of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast, we touch on a little bit of the entertainment we've been watching. So I've had a handful of things I've gone over, some good, some bad. But Aiden, take it away. I know you just rewatched a favorite of yours.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino is a horrible person, but boy, does this guy make some good movies. and one of them,
One time during COVID, I made a post on my second Instagram account because people used to have those. I remember they're like more private, and I said, "Call me Quentin Quarantino because my life is a movie." Yeah, just thought if there was ever a time to bring that up, now was the time.
I watched Tangled mid COVID, and I totally
Sick.
resonated with Rapunzel being locked in her house doing the same crap over and over and over again every day.
Did you also feel like a pretty spunky blonde woman with a lizard-like pet?
No, I was a little bit sadder than that.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
she was sad too.
yeah.
The
She,
spunk was a front.
yeah, it was. Although, you know what? For her to like not try and escape for 18 years, like, how upset really are you?
I think she's lying. I think she did try to escape. And then wait, we're getting a live action one of those at some point soon. I'm pretty sure. But it's just before you go into your movie. Now that I'm on this, before I forget it, we're already getting a live action Moana.
Are you
It's
gonna watch
already
it?
coming.
I haven't
It's been
watched
six.
these.
It's been no. It's been 8 years since the original animated one came out, and we're gonna get a live action one already. I think this is premature. I don't think that's needed yet. I don't think people are calling for that. Butts
It's
in seats.
almost not worth
Butts in seats.
starting. It's almost not worth starting this conversation because
Okay. All
you're
right.
so right, and I'm gonna so agree with you. But then I'm just gonna take it to a point where I just end up dumping on everything Disney is and
When we
stands
get live
for.
action cars, dude, think about the large RC cars that we could add CGI effects to. Why don't we have live action Toy Story before we have live action Moana? Like, come on here.
Okay, and you know
What are we
what?
doing?
You're saying that as a joke. Obviously, you're saying that as a joke. A live action Toy Story would be just as live action as the live action Lion King. Okay? The Lion King was not live action because they didn't go to on a safari and film animals for this movie. It was
No, it was
CGI.
Lion King Ultra Realism Edition.
Yeah, it was CGI computer animations. We're like, oh, we're gonna make a Cars live action and a Toy Story live action. You know what? Be just as live action as some of the ones that we've had presented to us as if they
Live
are.
action Little Mermaid?
The live action Jungle Book, dude. There was one
I
actor. It was
refuse.
Mowgli. It was Mowgli. Who's it? It was the
You know
rest of
what
it
was
was.
actually kind of, you know what was actually kind of good though, and I think it was underrated was the live action Mulan. I thought that was solid.
You know why? Because Mulan wasn't like a super iconic, very popular one, right?
You
Yeah, but I had seen Mulan the once, and
did
it
you
did
own
not.
VHSs as a kid?
Yeah, there's
Is our
some like
age gap that
oh,
significant?
there's some
Okay.
behind me here. I'm at my parents' place. We can go through this collection. There's definitely
Yeah.
some in
Okay.
this room
All
with
right.
me right now.
All right. I just had to make sure our 4 year age gap wasn't significant enough that you didn't have VHS.
It's all good.
Otherwise,
It's
we were
here.
gonna have to go through an education session where you were gonna have to go find a VHS and you were gonna have to rewind it and give it back to me. Because if I told my little brother that, he would go, "What? What? It's a brick. How do you rewind a brick? It clacks when I shake it."
I think I definitely was on VHSs longer, but I do remember like one of the first cars we had a cassette player in it too.
What?
Yeah, one of like the early ones. It was an old car, but like yeah, one of my cars in the 2000s had a cassette player in it.
Like a VHS?
No, a cassette, like a music.
Oh,
Yeah.
like a car that your family had. I was thinking about Cars the movie. I was like,
No,
Cars
no.
that. What's he smoking?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
Um,
sick. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
the
I've
Quinn.
had many old turd vehicles. I've only had I've only had two vehicles that were made after I was born. And I mean, I think that's pretty cool. My first two were from 1980 and 1984. So they smelled like memories. And yeah, so you had a movie before I went on this wild tangent,
Oh,
which I enjoyed. This is the most I've laughed today, was talking about live action Moana.
dude, I think I literally just called Quentin Tarantino a POS and then I moved on. But
Yeah.
Inglorious Bastards is one of my favorite movies ever, if not my favorite movie ever. And James, just in the 2026 political climate, it was very lethargic to watch Inglorious Bastards and remember how the world used to and should treat Nazis. That's all. That's all. It was a couple hours of catharsis in a frustrating world to watch Brad Pitt's group wreak havoc.
Hell yeah, man. I actually watched that movie for the first time at a sleepover when I was 11, and we went to the Safeway right by my buddy's place. It was my friend's birthday sleepover, and his mom was going to let us rent two movies from the Netflix DVD rental machine. And we picked one for one of them. We picked Inglorious Bastards, and it was kind of a 50-50 split on what we were going to rent for the second one. And I was in the group that wanted that movie. And then I remember my friend's mom going, "No, this isn't the right movie for an 11th birthday." Now, she didn't decide that when we were renting the movie. She decided that when we were watching a skull get bashed in. And yeah, that movie came out of the DVD player real quick, so I had to go watch it on my own at home. And yeah, it was pretty dope, I must say. But she's probably right. It wasn't a movie for an 11th birthday party. I think it's my turn, and I watched I watched a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah,
I watched the Darjeeling Limited.
that sounds like a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, it's it's a comedy about three brothers played by Owen Wilson, Adrian Brody, and Jason Schwartzman traveling through India by train after their fathers died so they can find themselves and have a spiritual experience. And Owen Wilson is the brother who organizes this. And every 5 minutes for the first like 30 minutes of the movie, he's talking about having a spiritual experience and finding themselves. He redeclares the plot of the movie repeatedly, and it's like it's hilarious. Um, I think this is a movie that I wouldn't like watch with other people very much, and if it was with other people, I would have to ensure that it's the right person I'm watching it with. It's the whole movie. It explores coping with grief, but avoiding actual grieving. And so that's kind of the deeper meaning of it. But realistically, it's just three idiot brothers hanging out in India and stuff goes right and stuff goes wrong.
What's it called?
The Darjeeling Limited. You can watch it on Netflix, I believe. Yeah, Netflix. Might be Disney as well. I think it's in one of those weird spots where it's on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I highly recommend it to any of you just looking for a bit of a lighthearted, enjoyable hangout. Because I more so felt like I was hanging out with the characters than I felt like I was watching a movie. So I think I think that's a pretty good feeling for a
When
movie
you
to give.
when you said Adrian Brody and Owen Wilson in a Wes Anderson movie, my mind immediately went to The French Dispatch. So it's funny that
Nice,
like what
nice.
17 years before,
Yeah,
you had Wilson and you had Adrian Brody in the in another Wes Anderson movie that I didn't know they were both in as well.
yeah. Um, I've watched a couple of other movies as well, but I'm still very slowly plugging away at my top movies of 2025. You're probably gonna end up getting that in like mid-late March, realistically, because I've decided I don't want to pay to watch any more of these. So yeah, I
James,
totally
dude,
agree with a couple of less desirable places, but I don't like using my school laptop for that. I'm not a fan.
yeah, I guess now it is our school laptops again,
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah, yeah.
Dude,
Aiden and I are university students again. Isn't that crazy?
listen, all right, piracy is so back, okay?
Piracy's dope. I love Pirates. Pirates of the Caribbean's like one of my
Yeah,
favorite movies.
piracy's so back. There's always a way to watch movies, guys. Just
Always.
ad blocker, and know what you're doing. All right, like when there's an
There's usually
X.
a box you need to uncheck.
Yeah,
And if
when
you don't uncheck that box, your computer will turn into a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely need to change your Google Chrome settings to be like block all automatic downloads. Like it needs to check with you before I download something off a website. That's necessary. I'd advocate for an ad blocker too. But if the movie that you want to watch isn't on streaming, it's not on streaming because the people that run streaming companies hate you. So hate them back and steal it online.
One thing I've never asked you on this podcast is if there's an album or artist you've gone back to or listened to extra lately, because I recently picked back up Cage the Elephant, and dude, I'm having so much fun. So
Interesting.
much fun.
That's cool.
Anyone? Anyone you've been listening to that you picked back up recently?
Whenever I'm home, I kind of just pick through the records that are here because both mine and my dad's live here. Mine isn't in Calgary with me because that would be such a pain to haul. So it's the and you know what's funny? The records, when I say vinyl records and I say I'm getting back into them, you're gonna think of an old band. I have a couple MGMT albums that I would never listen
Sick.
to in full, like just on Spotify on my own. But when I'm here, and I've got people coming over, sometimes I'll just throw the MGMT ones on and listen to them in their entirety. So it's funny that for the first time in a long time, I went back to their two most famous albums, I think. One of them is Oracular Spectacular, that one obviously is, but the other one I think is Little Dark Age.
Oh,
Yeah, that one's good too.
what an experience,
Yeah.
man. All right, we need to shut this down before I start gushing about how much I love MGMT. All right, well, I really appreciate the listen on this one. I hope you guys enjoy watching the semifinals, Olympic finals, just as much as I do, if not more. You might even like it more. I do not have anything else for you this pod, so without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.